And good morning, I guess afternoon, technically, everyone. I am Matt Embry, and with me is Bruno. If you're there, Bruno, you can say hello.
Hello.
There he is. So today we're going to give you a quick little webinar about getting the most out of ShareFile's features. So what we plan on covering today, I'm going to cover some basic security features that we don't typically see a lot of customers use, or at least I don't typically see a lot of customers use. I guess I could have done an intro about who I am and what I do on that first slide. But I'm Matt Emery. I'm a sales engineer and a customer success engineer. I work with the premier customers, so our larger line size of customers. Same with Bruno. I typically work in the finance department, but nonetheless, I'm going to cover some of the security stuff that we don't typically see. So things like recurring reporting, so that you can make sure that you have logging and audit trails and everything like that. Some of the new stuff with auto-remediation and our threat alerts. And then I'll pass over to Bruno, who can talk more about templates, and I'll let Bruno give a little summary of what he wants to talk about.
Yep. So thanks for the intro, Matt. Yep, as Matt said, he and I are both two of our enterprise sales engineers and customer success engineers. Um, Once we get through the initial overview of security features, reporting, threat alerts, and remediation, we'll take a look at ShareFile's native templatization for a few different things: e-signature documents, dynamic folder templates, and even project templates, including various types of info requests, doc requests, etc. These are now being populated by ShareFile as well as third-party partners for your convenience. So basically, we're building a little workflow and almost micro app catalog that you can deploy into ShareFile and use pre-built workflows. So we'll touch on that last.
Okay, so the first thing I wanted to cover today is reporting, and more specifically, recurring reporting. So on your ShareFile account, if you go to settings, admin settings, company account info, and reporting, this is a brand new account, so I don't have a lot of content generated, but here in the top right, you can create a report. When you create a report, you can choose what type of report you want to make. So usage report is probably the most common. It gives you all activity that happens on the account. Access report is who has access to what files, and access change would just be the change that happened recently. Storage information on the account. You can also do a share report, which will give you a breakdown of what files are being shared. Similarly, with a request report, it will detail all of the file request links that are out there. You can pull a report on your users. We have bandwidth information. And then lastly, messaging. So if you needed to know who's emailing who. However, when you create a report, so in this example, I will do a usage report, you can choose, in most cases, what you're targeting. So you could target a specific user, you could target a specific folder structure. However, for this, I'll do the entire account, and then you can choose what activity you're looking for. For the sake of just general security on the account and audit control, I would say to have everything selected. Set this range to whatever interval we're eventually going to run it at. So I can do, let's say, last 30 days. And then this setting here for recurring, we'll select yes, so that the next step is how often do I want this to run. And I can set this to run every month. We'll just say the first of the month. And then you select a folder where you want to save that report to. So if I set this to a shared folder location, I don't really have much on this account, but if I set this to a shared folder location, I could then give my administrators upload alerts to that folder structure, so that anytime this report is generated, those admins will get a notification saying, hey, there's a new report. You can go look at it and review it, see if there's anything going on. So I would say to just go in, like most customers that I talk to are already familiar with reporting in general and that it exists, but not everyone that I talk to is running recurring reports. So I would say just go in, create a recurring report, The primary one is going to be that usage report because it gives you all of the logins and downloads and uploads and moves and things like that that occur. And then just set a recurring report so that in the event that you need to go back in time, you're not limited to what the usage report can run. So by default, you have to pull it in 90-day blocks. For larger accounts, these reports can get massive, so we limit it to 90 days so that they can actually run. Sometimes it'll be millions of lines long in a big account. So there's a 90-day window that you can pull from, but you can pull back to the dawn of the account. So you can go back to forever, but you can only go back in 90-day increments. But if you have a recurring report, you don't have to run all those to go get that information. You would already have that in a folder structure. So that's kind of how to, just high level, how to get the information that's happening on your account. But we do have other security settings in the account that I'd like to touch on. And one of them is inside of the security tab. So still in that same area under settings, admin settings. However, this time under security, we have security alert settings. So inside of security alert settings, we have these alerts. So send an alert whenever ... And here we can do a user signs in from a different country. So in many organizations, their user base is relatively stagnant. They're not hopping from country to country. So anytime a user signs in from a different country, that could be something where we want to just be alerted about. Now, this user doesn't normally connect from insert country name. Let's take a look at that user and see what's going on, or if anything's going on, reach out, send an email, say, hey, what's up? Something like that. Also, if they do a different city on a different device, so if we want to be even more strict about where they're connecting from, if the entire country or multiple countries is too big of a landscape, then we can lock that down to different city with a different device. So we typically see them connect from a particular laptop, and then now they're connecting from an entirely different location with an entirely different device. Let's get a notification on that. Multiple failed sign-in attempts. So in a scenario where perhaps it's a brute force attempt on the account and someone is trying to guess credentials in order to gain access, that would be something that we would definitely want to know about. So have a notification for that. And sometimes those could even be triggered just unintentionally, right? So somebody's trying to log in, they don't know their password, they're unsure of their password, and they try a few times. It's good to be alerted on that. Maybe you can get in front of a ticket that's going to be created from a user to say, hey, can you reset my account or assist me with this in some way? So that one's good to have, definitely. And then a suspicious file is uploaded to a folder is the last one. ShareFile is scanning for any malicious content being uploaded. So if a file is uploaded that contains malicious content, then ShareFile can alert the administrators and the users that are sending or uploading those files that that file was flagged. And that's what these other check marks are. So obviously, or I'm going to say obviously, but in most cases, we're going to want the admins to be notified, but maybe we don't necessarily want the clients to be alerted if they're signing in from a different location or a different device. And with this, we can also set alternate contacts. So maybe we want to send this to a distribution group so that multiple people are alerted by this. Maybe you have a full admin team. You can add a secondary contact as opposed to the master admin where these alerts are sent by default. So if the master admin is just the account owner and not necessarily a security person that needs to know about this type of content, we can add an alternate contact so that a distribution group or specific users are notified directly. And what this looks like, I did trigger this earlier on one of my users, is I got a security alert notifying me of multiple sign-in attempts. It gives you the email of the user, the location, the time that it happened, and also there's a button for review user activity. And when you go to that, what it takes you to is the People tab, Browse Employees, and the user in question. So in my case, I only have 2 users on the account, so I know it wasn't me. It's got to be this person. And then there's a Activity and Security Alerts tab, and this is where you can see what that notification was. So multiple failed sign-in attempts, and then you can take action manually in the event that it's something maybe more. This is a relatively light security alert, but if it's access from a different location, you can choose to disable the access entirely, so they don't have access to the account anymore. You can kick them out. You can reset the password, and you can also reset two-step verification. So in ShareFile, there is a two-step verification by default, and you can extend that to all client users if you wanted to. It's on by default for employee users, but if you want to also include client users, you can do so, and you can reset that two-step verification. So in a scenario, you could log them out, reset their two-step, and make sure that they are who they say they are, essentially. You can also remove them from folders you own, but for the most part, if it's an alert where you're taking manual action, I would say to just disable access entirely so that it's not something that you need to worry about, right? Disable access, and then we can figure out what's going on and then resolve any issues that come up. Similarly, or something that I can touch on real quickly for reset two-step verification, we recently allowed this to be given as a permission. So in the past, only master admins or the account owners were able to reset two-step verification. So in a scenario where a user needed to reset their two-step account, but the master admin wasn't around, something like that, they're on vacation, they had to call support, and it was a bit of a process for us to reset accounts. Now that permission is tied to a user permission under the manage employees section. So if you give a user the ability to manage employees, then they have the ability on a user to reset the two-step verification. That's relatively new, so I just wanted to call that out because it was something that a lot of my customers were asking for. So it's helpful to now be able to delegate that permission to other admins and not necessarily rely on just one user who has that level of access. So I've talked about the reporting, talked about the security alert settings, touched on the two-step verification piece. However, these are all kind of manual, right? In reporting, you have to review the reporting to either see see if there was something that you needed to take action on, or you received an alert and you wanted to go and take action on that specific alert. Something that is pretty new in the ShareFile space is now auto-remediation. So inside of settings, admin settings, under the security tab, we have login and security policy. And now this auto-remediation field is here. And here we're checking against a handful of possible scenarios and then automatically taking action. And taking action in this case is we force a password reset. So in a scenario where, let's just say like an account is compromised and we detect the impossible travel, aka they teleported across the globe and they're logging in from different locations. We can detect that automatically and then immediately take action. So in these scenarios, you're not relying on an email notification or reporting or anything like that. These are events that ShareFile is monitoring for, and when we detect one of these events is taking place, we immediately log them out, and then we do a password reset so that user has to reset their password before they can access. The impossible traveler is just accessing from multiple countries. So if we detect that a user is hopping around, based off IP address, something like that, we detect that they're popping in from different locations through an impossibly short time frame. So they're not physically able to travel these distances, but they're logging in from multiple locations. Then ShareFile will kick them out and then do that password reset. In another scenario, not necessarily where like a compromised account, but let's say a high download activity. So this could be an angry employee who is downloading all of the content before they delete it or before they leave the company, something like that. ShareFile is monitoring what your users are downloading regularly, and if we detect an unusual change, so a significant increase in the rate of downloads is how we word it here, Maybe it's a data breach, maybe it is unauthorized access, whatever the case is. If we detect that there is an unusual high access of downloads, then we also kick that user out, force a password reset so that we have to verify who that user is. There are email notifications for this as well, so like it's not like you're not in the know when these things occur. You will be notified that these things are occurring, and if you need to, you can take additional action. You can disable the account, right? You can um, fully kick them out so that they can't simply reset their password or something like that. And then the last one is access from a high number of IPs. So not necessarily jumping to multiple countries, but just jumping to multiple different IPs. So maybe they have some type of proxy and they're just popping around through the internet to be able to like cloak their access, let's say. In this scenario, we would see the significant increase in number of IP addresses, unique IP addresses, and then take action. So again, these are events that you don't have to monitor for these to take place. These are things that are automatically occurring, and when we notify or when we recognize that they are occurring, ShareFile immediately takes action to prevent them from doing any harm to the account overall. The last thing I wanted to cover, and I think this is a pretty good segue to what Bruno is going to cover, is in the project section. So Bruno will talk more about projects and templates and things like that. But for something that's new to ShareFile is the ability to pull reporting specifically on a project. So if you have a project created, you go into that project, click the More Options button here, and then now you have Create Activity Report. And this is a way to just pull a activity report from a 90-day window so that if you have auditors or if you have compliance and you need to just know what's happening on a project, now you can pull an activity report of specifically a project to know what clients are doing what inside of the project itself. But like I said, Bruno will be covering more in the project, so I won't steal his thunder. I will let him fully explain that and demo that portion of the conversation. However, lastly, I did want to wrap up by showing you the Resource Center. So in the Resource Center, which is the bottom right hand icon that you've seen throughout this demonstration, we have the getting started information. So if you just want basic help on how to create a client user or something like that, it'll show you in the product, this is the best way to do it. And then you can also watch a video to get more information or like a full walkthrough of it. There's also what's new. So this is what I just talked about with the security threat alerts. Anything that's new will be a notification here. So when something new comes out, we do put a little notification icon on these. But also, the most important one I would say is to contact your success engineer. So if you do have any questions about ShareFile or just want to learn more about a particular feature that we've talked about, you can go to the Resource Center and contact your success engineer. In this case, it's me. And then you can click Let's Connect, and it'll send a message to me, and it'll allow me to reach out via email, and we can set up a meeting to help you, or I can just answer any questions via email, however you want to really proceed. But the Resource Center is a great resource. So that's about it. I will now pass it to Bruno to cover projects and templates more in depth.
Okay, so as mentioned at the outset of the webinar, we're going to cover a little bit of information about templates in their different forms, what that means, how they're used, and how to get more of that template-y goodness. So let's take a look. Now, first and foremost, there is a more recent change from something that some of you may already be used to. So we'll start there. For a very long time, ShareFile has been working with our built-in integrated e-signature platform that historically had been a click away in a separate portal, separate interface. And over the past year, we've made great strides in fully rolling that into and inside the ShareFile solution so that you don't have to click into a different UI. The buttons are in different places, that kind of stuff. So now we're all under one roof, and we refer to that as native e-signature. So we can find documents that are pending signature or have been completed in our Signatures tab on the left-hand side here. And so what we'll do now is talk about templates. When we first started the journey of getting this native e-signature integrated, templates took a little more work to move into this arena and get under this all-in-one roof concept that we've been talking about. So now they're here. This is more newly released. Let's take a peek. So when we click templates, first and foremost, there are a couple of different types of templates. The templates tab is all encompassing. It covers everything, whether it's document-based, project-based, or even more complex than that. We'll lead off with document templates. So as we can see, we've got one here under My Templates. This has been built by me. I can also see templates that others have built and shared with me under the Shared with Me tab. So if you have one particularly tech-forward user on your ShareFile account in your organization, maybe it's you, maybe you've got that teammate that's great at organizing and setting up these things that can be used again and again and again, then the sharing of templates is going to be very important, whether you're the one curating them for your team or whether you have someone else doing it. In fact, before we dive into exactly what that takes, let's look at the process of getting something into the Shared with Me section or popping it into our coworkers Shared with Me template section. So once you've built an initial document template, which we'll walk through in just a moment, we can refer back to it at any time under My Templates, select it with the checkbox, and then we get the View Details, which can let us preview the template, or we have the option to delete it or manage access to it. Now, our engineering and development team has really put a lot of effort into making these controls more fine-grained than ever before. So when we click Manage Access, we are able to see who has access to it currently, share it out with other users, and even customize the role of a given user. So in this case, I'm the creator, but I can take any other user and assign them either viewer permissions or something a little more custom. Let's start from scratch here. So when we choose a set of permissions, we do have predefined roles: viewer, contributor, creator, or fully custom. If we want to get the line by line of what that entails for each one of those preset roles, we can click View. And if we want to just know everything that's available, we can click on Custom. So we would be setting permissions for this specific template. Who can do what? Can they view it? Can they change it? Can they share it with other people? Or can they delete the template completely? And depending on which combination you choose, that's what those preset roles are made up of: viewers, creators or contributors, etc. So we would simply click the role and share, or choose a custom set. Now, the same is true for any type of template, whether it's specifically around getting a document signed or whether it's something more involved through our projects templatization, which again, we will get to that a little bit later. But let's dig into what it takes to actually create a document template, since this is something that we've been doing in some way, shape, or form for quite a while, but we've given it better functionality and a new look. So to create a document template, we simply click Create, And as you might guess, we select document template. In this case, just for the sake of keeping things moving, I will grab a PDF off of my desktop and use that as the base for our template here. And we can also pull from our ShareFile account. So if we want to browse through our folder structure, no problem. And we would next set the roles of the various signers we're going to have on the document. So if this is something that you want to store as a blank copy of a document and then share out to your customer-facing company representatives to fill in some of the key details and then pass to your customer themselves to sign off on, that's a very common format here. So we'll say, in this case, our company is the Acme Corporation. So we'll have our Acme Construction Representative as role number 1, and the person requesting a construction project as role number 2. Notice that they are color-coded as well, so we'll be able to sort out who's who once we get this set up. Now, this is covered more in depth on a separate webinar, so if you have some questions about how we integrate with external tools such as Salesforce, QuickBooks, and the like, we are able to scrape in data from these external data sources to fill in certain fields on documents that you build automatically. I would refer you to our webinar page where you can view some of our past our existing recorded webinars on demand for more detail on projects and using variables as part of your workflows. Also want to point out we have the ability to set a signer sequence on document templates so that we can specify that signer number 2 will only receive the document after signer number 1 has completed it. If we don't use that, then everyone gets the document all at once. So from here, it's pretty straightforward. We simply choose who needs to fill in a bit of information and what information they need to fill in. And we're going to just drag and drop it onto the document itself. So in this case, we want our customer to sign and date. And we want our company representative to fill in some of the other information about the job, where the change order is being sent, etc. We don't have to build all of this out in full detail. I just want to show you all where this lives for the purpose of our demonstration today. And we now have the option for any date fields to set to the date of execution, which means I could ask someone to fill in the date, or I could just have it default to the day they open the document to sign it. Rolling right along, when we save this template, we give it a name, any description. We can choose to have a passcode for individuals to whom we're sending this document for signature, where we would provide a 5-digit passcode in order for them to open the document and sign it. If you're working in accounting, legal, finance, that may be required in certain scenarios, depending on what the content of your document is. So just be aware that that is available right here. And you can even enable that by default for a template, which means every time you go in to send a copy of this to a new customer, someone else, whomever it is, it'll always have that default passcode option on. And once we click Save Template, great, our new document template is going to show up here. We'll give it a quick refresh, and it'll show up in our list of templates. So there we go. These are the ones that I've made. And again, I could go in and share these out with the rest of my team or look at what's shared with me. So I did want to point that out, and let's talk briefly about how to use this, since using the document templates is the most common. So once we have our template built, whether it's shared with us or whether we made it ourselves, we simply click on it. And if we have edit rights, we can go in and tweak it. Or if we just want to take this, send it out as a signature request, whichever fields we've mapped to different individuals, that's fine. That's already preset. We're just taking this as is, and we're going to fill in who's representative number one. If there's someone on our account already, that makes things easy. Right? So we select our users. So we've got our rep and our client, blue boxes versus orange boxes, color coded, nice and neat. We click next step. We can rename the document. We can determine, and this is also new with the native e-signature experience, we can determine where this signed copy is going to be filed away in our ShareFile account, which means we don't have to go and do that after the fact. Once it comes back signed, it'll automatically be filed into the right folder, whichever we choose. Again, if we had chosen to set a passcode, this would be flipped on by default. We can still go in and turn that on as needed and manipulate these variables as needed, expiration date, etc. And we click send. Now it's out the door. So that is how we both build and distribute a template, whether it's sharing it to signers in a document workflow or sharing it out with our teammates. With that being out there, let's take a look at two other key pieces: the dynamic folder templates aspect of ShareFile and templatizing projects themselves. In fact, I think we're going to go ahead and move on to projects first, because that's part of the same UI we're looking at right here. So when it comes to projects, again, this is something that we've covered in previous webinars. So if you're not familiar with the concept, I would encourage you to check one of the webinars specific to projects for more detail on what this is. But the idea here is that it's an all-in-one hub for all things pertaining to a given activity. You get a dashboard that shows you how your requested documents are trickling in and whether they're correct, approved, on time, any files that you have saved, whether that's outgoing or incoming from your external partners, vendors, clients, whoever, comments between all of the parties involved, and even information requests, a la filling out a web form. We can take a look at that. If we need to get information in from some of our external parties, all of that's built in right here. We can have them fill that in instead of trying to wedge this into an e-signature document when really we just need answers and not signatures. So the nice thing about this is, no matter what it is that I need to request or assign tasks, I can actually take this, however I've fleshed this out, and save it as a template. So that means once I build out a project that models a workflow I know I'm going to do over and over again, let's say I have case files or the onboarding of a new customer or even a new employee, closing a contract, reporting a safety incident, financing a new car, whatever it might be, I can actually build out every little step of that workflow, the tasks that need to be assigned, the roles they need to be assigned to, the documents I need to collect from either internal or external parties. So stuff I need to gather from my team, stuff I need to gather from my clients, opposing counsel, the other side of a real estate sale, whatever. Get it all in one place and actually be able to cut, copy, and paste that same format over and over again for every time I work on that same type of task or engagement. Note that what won't be copied are the actual people themselves. The role of user, client, employee, that'll carry over just fine. We will not copy over who that client was, who that employee was. So basically, you are starting with a blank template each time. The comments will be left off and the files will be left off. As you might imagine, this is an important privacy and security measure to keep everything safe and keep you from accidentally oversharing information with the wrong party. Of course, just like we saw with e-signature documents, your template gets a name and a description. And once you templatize it, you'll be able to determine with whom in your organization this will be shared out to so that you can make it available to the right people and just like with the information itself, not overshare it with the wrong people. You don't need to give the accounting department ways to work a sales workflow, and you don't need to give the HR team a way to deal with accounts receivable, right? So once we click Create Template, whatever we've built out over here will show up in templates. In my case, I didn't walk through building a complete one. Some of my teammates have done a great job building them out. So let's look at what's shared with me. And I've got the Acme Corporation client onboarding template. All right, so when we look at that template, right? I'm not an editor or a creator or anything, so I can just come in and use it. That's very important because this was created by my colleague Joey. If I'm maybe a user that's a little less tech savvy, you want to let me use it and play around with it. You probably don't want to allow me to tear it down and rebuild it the wrong way that would mess up the workflow of others, right? You've built it, you've curated it a certain way. You want to lock it down, make it useful to others, but don't let them go in and rewire everything. All I have to do is come in here and click Use Template, and I'm able to spin up a new instance of this template for a new project, right? Everything looks and works the same, but it's for a different client. The next important part of templates are a little bit beyond just the simple onboarding templates, right? So let's take a look at the catalog. I've already got this preloaded here. So when we click into the ShareFile catalog, these are templates that are already built out by ShareFile or by some of our third-party partners. In this case, we have Design Flow Labs. We have one built by Surreal, S-U-R-Y-L. Yes, that is pronounced Surreal. And if we install these templates, let's take a peek. When we click into it, we're given a brief little overview in the catalog of what's in here. So this example is a safety incident management project. It's the workflow with specific tasks related to reporting and investigating a safety incident, filling in a report form, providing additional info, closing the incident, and processing a form. We can see some examples of the fact that we're going to be asking our customer, or excuse me, our employees in this case, those subject to this safety incident, to fill in some information on a form, who we're going to assign that to. So they'll get an email asking them to click and fill in the necessary info. And we'll be able to just go down the list and mark these things off as they're completed, or have them automatically marked off as they're completed so that we get a dashboard view of what's outstanding, what do we need to follow up on, etc. Again, we get our little description, and we simply click Install to populate this into our list of templates that we have in our share file. So two key points here. Number one, this template catalog is going to continue to grow over time. It's still in the early stages, so we've got some basic ones that are the absolute most common, most useful across all industries, right? And please do remember that ShareFile works in all industries: legal, healthcare, finance, construction, engineering, HR, kind of as its own industry, and so on and so forth. So if you see stuff in there that's not necessarily for you, don't worry. That's why we broke it out into a template catalog so you can pick and choose which ones you want to show up in your list, so that it's most relevant to you. But also remember that if it doesn't exactly fit what you need, once you pull the template down, you can go in, rebuild it, move things around, relabel things. I might look at this safety incident management and go, wow, 3 out of the 6 things on this list and the way that it's all flowing together and wired together are great for my jet ski rental business. However, I'm certainly not an HR department of a larger company, right? So all of these labels don't apply to me. That's fine. It makes sense. I'll just change the labels, get rid of all that HR stuff, and make it work the way I need it to. But the flow works as a jumping off point. That's something that you can do. So this is truly custom. Not only can you hire outside partners to design and build exactly what you need, but it is customizable by you as well. So please remember these templates are a jumping off point. They may be complete solutions for you. You may be able to click install, use them right away, and keep on rolling. But if you need something a little more custom, either ask us, play around with the tool. We can connect you with a partner if need be, if it's something more complex. But a great place to start is by reaching out to your sales engineer and customer success engineer team and dedicated representatives so that you can understand the full potential. Right, this is very important, folks. We do want to make sure that you're all comfortable with doing this. Also want to call out, I meant to include this in my speaking portion, but Matt's mention of connecting with your customer success engineer via the little notification bubble inside of ShareFile in the bottom right. Several of us will pop up with our faces and a contact link in your account. So just know that takes you to a form where you can email us directly. Please take advantage of that. We are here to help. We are real people. We're not one of those shopping websites that has an AI bot with a person's face on it. It's actually us. So please take advantage of that. That being said, when we come to support.sharefile.com, this is our support center. You can type in a question and this will instantaneously search our product documentation, our getting started resources, and the community forums to see if anyone has asked something like this. There may be an answer out there already. That's usually the simplest way from point A to point B, but oftentimes what gets in the way of us getting those easy answers is having the right terminology, right? If we don't know how to ask the question because these are new features or things we're not familiar with, it might be hard to get even an easy answer. And so this is probably, I would guess, the #1 reason why we get support tickets. So in that scenario, simply come down here to the bottom right, click chat with us, and we're going to have a little chat dialogue. It is going to walk you through a couple of quick screening prompts. What's going on? Can we help you find one of those easy answers automatically? What's the nature of the issue? But once you kind of tell us the initial steps of what's going on, you'll be able to actually get a live human being on the line, starting with chat. And if need be, they can open up a screen share and do a one-on-one troubleshooting session with you. Basically the same thing you would ultimately arrive at if you called in by phone to get somebody to help you out with an issue. So the phone 800 number, it's going away. We usually end up on a screen share that way anyway. So we're just starting it off in writing. Still got people behind it. Still got the option for screen shares if needed.
Thanks everyone for your time today. I wasn't ready for that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all for coming today. We hope you have a wonderful day.